Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Avodah Zarah 32m. We begin on the third line off the top of the Amud. So amongst the forbidden items, we have v'cheres. So it's a piece of pottery, a piece of clay, hadrayani, called cheres hadrayani. So that's forbidden due to its yain nesach, content, due to the fact that it contains goyish wine, forbidden wine. So you can't use this thing whatsoever. What exactly is this cheres hadrayani? My cheres hadrayani. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. How does a piece of clay end up with yain nesach content? Well, he says cheres shel hadrayanus kesar. Hadrayani means it belonged to. It was produced by this king Hadrayanus. So they would take them along on the road in order to have access to wine wherever they were. How did they go about this? Kiyasa Rav Dimi. When Rav Dimi came, he explained the process of producing this cheres hadrayani with its wine content as follows. Amar, he said, Karka basula haisa. You started with earth which was never cultivated, so it's fresh earth, uncultivated, like a clay. Karka basula haisa. Shloi ibda shloi avoda adam me'olam, which was never developed, it was never planted in. It was fully laden with whatever the ground is laden with, right? Full with nutrients. And so he took that property, avda, so he developed it, which means to say he plowed it and planted, but not only planted his vines, he picked his grapes, made his wine, verami leilachamra, and poured that wine, begulfi. Gulfi are these containers made of clay, of pottery, chivri, white ones, meaning fresh, first time they were being used. So now they fully absorbed that wine into their walls. They would absorb the wine content because it was so porous and absorbent, so it totally absorbed the content. And now you have containers with walls fully laden, saturated with wine. And they would crack, they would burst break them up into little pieces of chaspi, of clay, of pottery. And that would make for easy transport. But Dorabadai would take them along with them. So they had this dry wine, so to speak. Wherever they came, wherever they camped, wherever they traveled, they had ready wine. Torah lahu, they would take these pieces and soak them in water. Vishasu, and they would have a nice drink of wine. Amar Reb Shimon Levi, you know how powerful and concentrated this wine was? Barishan Shalanu, our regular wine, first time wine, Kishlishi Shalahen is like their third. So basically they would soak it once, extract some residue, soak it again, recycle it yet a third time. And the wine produced that third time was equal in quality to our regular wine. That's how powerful and concentrated their wine was. So again, back to the Mishnah. So the cheres hadrayani, this is the cheres produced by Hadrayanus Kesar, using this, employing this wine storage, dry wine system, would be considered off limits for us due to its yain nesach content. So certainly you can't drink from it, but what about using the pottery as a piece of pottery? Iboilu. So the question was asked like this. So let's say you want to balance your bed with it. It's a bit off balance. Carry the legs of the bed. So you want to stick a piece underneath to balance the bed. You're using the piece of pottery. You're not interested in the yain nesach content. You're not drinking it. So this type of benefit, this type of hana, allowed or not? This is called roitze b'kiyumai. He needs it to exist. Aydei davar acher, through something else. So his primary interest here is the piece of pottery, but inevitably, since it contains so much wine, which makes it inseparable from the actual pottery. It's like one and the same entity. So basically, he's inevitably making use or intending to have the yain nesach exist. He wants it to exist. He wants the whole thing to exist due to the fact that he wants to use the pottery for its pottery function. Is that allowed or not? Shari, is that allowed? Because I'm not really benefiting from the yain nesach or asur, or perhaps it's forbidden because inevitably he's making use of the entire entity with its yain nesach. Tashma, here comes a raya. To Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yochanan, there was machlokes. Chad asar, one forbade, v'chad shari, one permitted. Vilchas command the asar, we conclude that it's asar. Meisvi, here comes a kasha. A kasha on the one who permitted it, since it's not deemed having benefit from the yain nesach. We have a brisa as follows, discussing all types of containers. So we start with hadar durin. These are small-sized containers. V'haruk. These are again little containers meant to contain liquid, made from, Rashi says, made from leather. So you have little pitchers, little leather, containers, hardened leather, belonging to a guy who assumingly used it for his own purposes, perhaps for some wine, for some juice, for some, right? But they're not meant for long-term storage. They're meant for temporary, short-term use. Yain shall Yisrael konas behen. Now you have kosher wine in these containers. Problem or not? Asur b'shtia mutar bahano. You can't drink it, although you could benefit from the wine. We don't, ban it to that extent. But we say it's asur to drink because of concern that it may have gotten sort of mixed with the yain nesach residue trapped in the wall of this kli, which now comes out, in a sort of exchanges with the liquid that's contained therein. So that's one opinion. Heya de Shimon ben Guda, he came in and testified that it's okay. He testified lifnei bnoi Ram Gamliel, in front of the son of Ram Gamliel. You should know your own father allowed it. Since it's only for temporary short-term use, we don't assume there's much or any yain nesach on the walls of this kli. It's assumed to be kosher. So he testified, Al Ram Gamliel, you should know your father, your own father, Ram Gamliel, Sheshasa menu ba'akoy. He drank from these containers in Akoy, but you should know he was an isolated view. His colleagues did not agree with him. They were concerned that perhaps there's some non-kosher residue trapped in the walls of the kli, which will now be extracted into its kosher content. Continues the brisa. What about noidos? So these again were these leather, pouches meant to hold wine, used by goy, which are saturated with yain nesach. So certainly you shouldn't fill them with your own content. What about using them for their leather, function? Rabban Shim Gamliel Eimer, Mishum Rabbi Shua ben Kapusai. He relates like this: Asur la'asus mehen shtichin lachamar. You cannot even use them as a mat, like a saddle, over your donkey. Now, why not? Are you benefiting from the yain nesach residue in the leather? No. You want it for its leather's sake. Here you have an example. He needs the yain nesach to sort of exist because he wants to use the leather which is housing the yain nesach. Uktani the Asr, Brisa says it's no good. You can't use it because you're ultimately benefiting from the content as well, from the yain nesach. There's a kasha on that opinion that allowed it, backed by the pieces of clay which were saturated with, right? Asks the Gemara. Well, if that's the reason that it would be asr. Look, we see all the time people are dealing with, merchants are buying and selling containers which have been used by goyim with yain nesach. We don't see any problem doing that. According to your question, according to your opinion, according to your track. So what about kanav shel gechavim? Liquid, containers used by goyim for their liquid. You shouldn't be able to buy or sell them because they're saturated with yain nesach, and right, and ultimately you're considered to be having hana from the residue absorbed in the walls, even though your primary interest is merely to deal with containers. Your focus is on the container, not on the content. Litzur, you shouldn't be able to deal with them. You shouldn't have hana from them. Limizban, you shouldn't be able to buy them, sell them, right? So what's the difference? Maishno noidos, maishno kankanim. What would be the difference between leather containers or kankanim pitchers and stuff like that? Says the Gemara, apparently the reason has nothing to do with reitze b'kiyumai, ali dedav acher, that a roundabout benefit is considered direct benefit. No, that's not the point. It's not considered. It's not usher because of the content. And that explains why you can buy and sell pitchers, no problem. What about the leather pouch, which cannot be used as a shetiach for the chamor, to cover your donkey, as a saddle on your donkey? Says Rava, I'll tell you what, there's a very specific concern. Gezerah, there's a concern. Shema yiboka noide. Perhaps I'll use that material as a patch. I'll snap a patch off his donkey, cover, and use it as a patch for his own leather pouch, which contains his own liquid. He might use it as a pouch, not realizing, hey, 1 second, this thing contains yain nesach. It's got to serve as a mardas, as a shatiach, and no more, and nothing else. The Yid's own personal leather pouch might burst one day, might develop a crack or something, a hole. I'll take this noid that he got from the guy, this leather mat, which was used as a mat, but he forgot. He thinks it's just a benign piece of leather. I'll take it and use it as a patch. And that's the problem. Because then you have it sitting on your own container, which contains your own wine, which will now extract from the absorbed residue in that patch. Asks the Gemara, according to the opinion that if you want the Isser aspect absorbed within this item to exist, in order to be able to use the item itself. So basically, the case of the cheres, right, which is absorbed with the aynes, will be usher to be used in any context. If you hold that, it's usher. Ma'ishna kankanim the sharu. So back to the question. So why do we buy and sell containers used by goyim for non-kosher material? Amar lach, he says like this: Hasan, in your standard kankan, leisei lisur be'inei. There's no visible, tangible isser there. It's absorbed deep within the wall. You don't have to reckon with it. Your primary, interest is the actual thing itself, the container. You can just do away and ignore the content. Hereby cheresat rayani. As we learned, it was so saturated, filled with yain. You can't ignore it. It's like right in front of you. It's tangible. It's a very real part, an integral part of this piece of cheres. Isei li'isur, the isur aspect is be'ein. It's tangible. It's felt. It's here. You can't ignore it. In fact, some Rishonim learned that the problem was because the wine sort of hardens the cheres, keeps it together, so ultimately you're having hana from it as well. And again, that's because of its high content. V'loi hoideloi. Okay, we did mention something about dardurin, rukvois, these, quick use, temporary use containers. Can we use it for kosher wine? According to the testimony offered by Shimon ben Gudda with an aleph, to the son of Ram Gamliel, his father allowed it, but his colleagues disagreed. We have a kasha on that account. We have another brayse, kosher wine placed into these non-Jewish containers. Also, no, you can't drink it. You can have a no, but you can't drink it. Heid Shimon ben Gudda, here it's with an ayin, right? He testified, Lefnei Bunoi, Shel Ram Gamliel, from Ram Gamliel's son, you should know your own father allowed it. Ram Gamliel Sheshasam, your own father drank from it. Ba'aka in the town of Akiva, and he agreed to him. No, so there you go. There was full agreement. It was by consensus. There was no disagreement. Whereas in the previous version, there seems to have been a disagreement. How do you drive these two versions? No, there's no contradiction. Initially, he said they, Kol Siyata, his colleagues, the whole group did not agree with this leniency. But his own son did agree, as per the most recent account as well. Another way to resolve this difference. Two different versions, two different people testifying, two different stories. The earlier version was Shimon Guda with an aleph, Guda Lachud, that's one person, V'Guda with an ayin Lachud, that's a different person. In fact, there were two different versions of the story. V'Oros Levuvin. The Mishnah speaks about another item which is off limits for us, Oros Levuvin, animal hides which have been bored out. There's a hole right in front of the heart area. Rashi explains they would pull out the heart during the animal's lifetime and serve it to Avodah Zarah. So if you find this animal hide which contains that type of hole, you know it was part of the Avodah Zarah offering and it's asr. Tan Rabbanan. What are the indications? What are the signs that it was used for this purpose? Ech ezo or lovav. How is that? Kol shakur neged alev. It's torn right opposite the heart. V'kadok min aruba, and it's round like a little window. So now yesh alav kured dam. If you see remnants of blood, congealed blood, which indicates a live wound, asr, then you know it's asr. Ein alav kured dam. It doesn't have a kured dam. Mutter, then it's okay because Rashi says apparently it was done after death, which is not the way they would serve their idols. Amar Huna Shano, that's only permitted if it wasn't salted, it wasn't processed, the hide. So lack of congealed blood indicates that it wasn't aval milchay, but if it was malachay, if it was salted, if it was processed, the hide was, then you can't know asr, you can't use it. Ema milchay haverasa, then you can speculate that this salt actually dissolved and removed that telltale sign. So you have to assume it was done during the lifetime and it's asr. If the hole is round, which is indicative of this process, then it's asr masha. But if it's elongated, it's long, it's mutter because that's not the way they did. Amar V'Yesav, Rabbi Shmuel, that's how we paskin that only if it's round is it a problem. Amali Abaye, who was Rav Yosef's student, asked him, you say the halacha follows this opinion. Were there opponents to this shita? Halacha, when you say halacha is like him, it sounds like there are others who disagree, right? Are there others who disagreed with him? Amali Rav Yosef says, what's the difference? And this is how we rule, so who cares if there are? What's the difference to you? Amali says, big difference. Gemara, you're teaching us halacha, Gemara. So one is meant to learn Gemara and Zamar Tehi and sing it like a song, this way, that way, without attention to detail. Meaning, I got to know. There's a difference of opinion. It's important for me to know, right? Important regarding comparing it to other case, whatever. I got to know. And in any case, that's how the discussion ended. Rabbi Chanana learns that it didn't really. Rabbi Yosef held that it didn't really matter. Meaning, even if there are no opponents, it's important to point out that that's the halacha. Perhaps just in case down the road you find an opposing view. In any case, that's the conclusion. Now, let's move on to another case. Basar hanichnas. So you see the guy carrying a tray full of meat to the Avodah Zarah. It's still okay at that time, mutter. You can quickly salvage it, and right, it's mutter because it hadn't yet been offered to the idol. Despite the fact that he slaughtered it, apparently, with this in mind or whatever. Man Tana, who's speaking in this Mishnah? Amar Rav Chibar, Amar Rav Yechon, the loy, it's not going. Kerbelezer. The Kerbelezer, according to him, Amar, he told us, the very fact that the guy slaughtered an animal makes it off limits. Stam machsheves oivd gechavim, we assume, even an unspecified act of shchita by a guy is presumed to be lavod gecham for the idol, meaning, Rashi learns, that the act of shchita, even in his own privacy of his home, the shchita sahi takrufta, says Rashi. It's an act of offering, and certainly in this case, what you see is actually bringing the meat. So we don't agree with that, unless he actually offered it, physically offered it. Until that point, it's still okay. But on the way out, he's carrying the tray out. Asr, at that point it's fully forbidden because it had been offered to the idol. Vayetze Asr, it's like Gizivchei Mesim, which means to say, it's treated like a Avodah Zarah offering, and it's Asr Bahna, like a deceased person. And Tosfos points out, despite the fact that it was just, you didn't actually do an act of hakrava, like shchita, like hazah, things that we do in the Beis HaMikdash, and lahavda, when they're done for Avodah Zarah, they're considered an act of service, and it affects the item or the material that was used as part of that process. Here it was just a doiroin, says Tosfos. It was a gift. It was an offering, and then he took it back home. It's still going to be usher. Why? Says the Gemara, my time of why? It's impossible. Meaning it's assumed that it was offered. The leka, can't assume that there is no aspect, the leka takrevis of its gechavim, that it was not served to the idol. Meaning we assume it was, and that affects its halachic status. Mani, who's speaking? Rabbi Yehuda ben Reseri. The Sanya ben Reseri. Imam Renayin. The takrevis. How do we know that something offered, something even offered as a gift? It's asr, and it can spread tuma to anything under the same roof, like a deceased person. Shenemar, they associated with the Avodah Zarah, and they ate the offerings, which are considered zivchei mesim. The connection to a mace is obvious. Ma mace, just like a mace, imparts tuma to anything under the same roof. After krevis, avetz kechavim. Likewise, Avodah Zarah gifts and offerings metama boil. Hoichan letarfos. Rashi says the lashon tarfos is a derogatory term referring to Avodah Zarah. It's a mistaken quest. Lavakish teusan lamakom acher, a waste of time. So on the way in, they're actually approaching their Avodah Zarah. They're going into the base of Avodah Zarah. Asurin laseis v'laseis imoy. Now we had a similar concept at the beginning of the Masechta, right? By the Eidein Shel Eved Kechavim during their holiday season, you disassociate monetarily. You don't want to deal with them, lest they have reason to. Lest they be inspired to go thank their Avodah Zarah for their success in business, right? Here we're not speaking during the holiday season, but you see the guy is approaching his base of Avodah Zarah, going to, So at that point, you pull back from interacting business-wise with him. Omar Shmuel, it depends who he is. If he's a guy, who's entering the base of Avodah Zarah, on the way in, you can't interact. Why? Because he might make a good deal, and that will inspire him to go thank his idol. The azl umoidi, he'll acknowledge, he'll thank Kami before Bachazor. But if he's on his way out, on the way back home, motor, at that point you can engage him in business. My dabahava, what was, past is past. He's not going back there too soon. As opposed to a Yisrael, a Yid, who unfortunately is drawn to Avodah Zarah. So Ha'ilach Tarfus. If he's on his way to Ba'alicha Mut, on the way to, you couldn't associate with him because he's a Yid after all. It's the opposite. He might have a good day, and that'll pump him up, give him self-value, self-esteem, and he'll withstand this temptation. He'll go back home, he'll change his mind, he'll cancel his plans. So it's not obvious, it's not inevitable, so you can deal with him. But he also will end up going to Avodah Zarah. But if he's already on his way back home from the Avodah Zarah, Chazorah, you can't engage him in business. Asur kivin the avik. But since he's attached, he's tied to Avodah Zarah, so ironically, he's even more, inspired or motivated than a guy. A Yid has more to him, right? Hadar azal. So if he has a good day and success in business, it might inspire him to turn around and go back and thank the idol. So in a way, he's worse off. Asks the Gemara. So according to this, if it's a Yisrael, on the way to, no problem. On the way back is a problem. By Tanya, we have a brisa that on the way to or the way back, it's us or Yisrael. If he is going to Avodah Zarah, whether on the way in or the way out, it's us. How do you explain that? He's speaking about it. Yisrael Mumar, a Yid who's unfortunately been habitualized into this mode. So in this case, the Vadei Osel, if he's on his way to, he's not going back. He's not changing plans too quickly. So therefore, the concern applies both ways, on the way in and on the way out. So bottom line is, we have three levels. If it's a guy, concern is only on the way in, not on the way back. Yisrael Mumar, both ways. A regular Yisrael only on the way back, but not on the way to. Tanar Rabban, just one more piece. Tanar Rabban, a guy who was on the way to the Avodah Zarah market. Apparently it was like a flea market or whatever, under the auspices of Avodah Zarah, so they would also deal with Avodah Zarah materials there, but they would deal with regular materials too. But it was officially an Avodah Zarah fair. A guy on his way to, bein ba'alicha, bein mechazar mutar, whether he's going to or coming from, you can deal with him, you can buy and sell, no problem. Because he's not going into the Avodah Zarah, he's going to a fair, right? So there's no issue dealing with him. But a Yisrael, if you find a Yisrael on the way to this Yirid, ba'alicha mutar, on the way to, you can deal with him, you can buy and sell, no issue. But if he's returning from this fair, you should not interact with him, engage him in business. Why? Because there's a very real concern that he went there to sell Avodah Zarah, paraphernalia, in which case money that he received in exchange for that material is also, because anything you got in exchange for Avodah Zarah is also. So the money that he has in his money pouch is Avodah Zarah money. Keep away. Asks the Gemara, but why only by the Yid do we say that? But why not by the guy on the way back from the Yirid? Why do we say a Yisrael on his way back is Asr the Amri? The concern is Avodah Zarah, Avodah Zav, and perhaps he sold an Avodah Zarah material, and the money that he has with him is the Mei Avodah Zarah. He has with him the Mei Avodah Zarah, money from Avodah Zarah, which is Asr. That concern applies by a Yid, certainly by a guy, if anything, right? As well, by the guy too, namely we should say perhaps he sold Avodah Zarah material there. And in which case, the money that he has with him is Avodah Zarah money. So what's the difference? Ella, apparently you have to say, we can cover the guy by saying, glima zav and chamra zav, and he sold a shirt, he sold some wine. It's not Avodah Zarah material. Well, say the same thing by the Yisrael Nami, by the Jew as well. Name we can say, right? Amor, probably glima zav and chamra zav, and he went to sell coats and juice and iron and grape juice, right? Benign materials. Why do we have to assume the worst? Answers the Gemara, you know why? You see, why is the Yid going to the Avodah Zarah fair if he's selling, innocent stuff? If you'd be dealing with those benign materials, he would sell it here on the corner in the variety store. He wouldn't go to the special Yirid Avodah Zarah. The fact that he ended up there, apparently, it raises some eyebrows, something fishy. I'm concerned that it was illicit material that he was dealing with, in which case his money is forbidden. Whereas a guy, he belongs there, it's his place. So going there and selling has no indication, has no simon of anything wrong. Let's just see one more piece here. 2 lines, because it connects to the Vaboin Maturn. Okay, it's on the way to the guy on the way to the base of Avodah Zarah. This relates back to the previous piece. So on the way back to the Avodah Zarah, you shouldn't deal with him because he'll go thank his idol. But on the way back, it's okay because he's not going back there too soon. That's only if they come back as individuals. They're not sort of coming back as a group. So each fellow is on his way home. He's not going back to Avodah Zarah. There's no concern. But if the goyim are coming back as a group, you never know. Perhaps they're still on that prayer mode. Surin, then you can't engage them in business. Since they're still as a group, as a club, you're concerned that perhaps they're still on that prayer mode, and perhaps the fact that they're walking as a group indicates that they still have plans, they still intend on going back to Avodah Zarah, so don't give him reason to go back and thank his idol for a successful business deal. Okay, let's do a quick chazor of today's daf. Cheres hadrayani, which is fully saturated with the yain nesach, is of course forbidden, completely forbidden. Using it as a support for the bed, well, it's a machlekes, whether reitze b'kiyuma dever acher is mutter or not. Containers used for short-term temporary use, Can they be used for kosher with kosher wine later? That was machlokes. Uris levuvin, with that roundish hole indicating Avodah Zarah use, is asur as well. Basar or whatever on the way in being served Avodah Zarah is still kosher, is still considered okay. It's not asur for it's not considered Avodah Zarah. Whereas on the way out, since it was offered to the idol, it is now considered zivchei mesim. Engaging a guy in business on the way into the Avodah Zarah is a problem, but not on the way back, unless there's an indication that he's still not, he's not done yet. Whereas a Yisrael, on the way in, you hope that he'll, abort his plan, so it's okay. On the way back, it's a problem. Yisrael Mummer, both ways, would be a problem. Regarding a Yerid, so a guy, that's okay. On the way to or from, there's no issue with that. A Yisrael, the fact that he's going there, raises some eyebrows. Perhaps he's seemingly selling some illicit material, in which case the money that he got in exchange for Avodah Zarah is considered asur, in which case you can't deal with him upon his return from this Yerid. All the best to you and much hatzlacha.